My husband, Ethan, was reborn and returned to the age of 17. In the principal's office, he stood up for his so-called white moonlight, the girl who had bullied me in high school. Holding her in his arms, he roared in fury, as if acting out some tragic love drama. Call the police. Check the surveillance footage. This time, I will expose your true face in front of everyone. I was also reborn. On my way here, I had already called the police for you. No need to thank me. That idiot was in the restroom of the academic building. Madison hummed a tune as she pressed a cigarette butt against my fingertip, the sound of running water masking her cruelty. Olivia, I'm warning you. Don't think that just because Mrs. Warren likes you, you can get close to Logan. She sneered, her eyes filled with contempt. You're nothing more than a stray dog the Warren family picked up out of pity. Madison was my sister-in-law. She was the adopted daughter of my mother-in-law, Mrs. Warren, the Aunt Warren she was referring to, who had taken her in from an orphanage. Mrs. Warren had spent her life devoted to charity, sponsoring many underprivileged children who had no access to education. I was one of them. At the high school opening ceremony, I was chosen to give a speech because I ranked first in the entrance exam. Sitting in the front row as a board member of the school, Mrs. Warren immediately recognized me. She was overjoyed and asked me to tutor her son, my classmate, Ethan. I agreed, thinking it was just an ordinary favor. But Madison, who had been secretly in love with Ethan for years, clearly didn't see it that way. She started bullying me, slapping me, tearing my homework, stuffing razor blades into my desk, pouring lime powder into my water cup, and even leading a group of delinquents to follow me after school. In my past life, I endured it all because I didn't want to make things difficult for Mrs. Warren. But before she died, she told me something she had always known. From the very beginning, she had stood above it all, watching as I struggled in the abyss. She saw everything I suffered as a necessary trial to make me the perfect daughter-in-law. She said she was pleased with the result, because, just as she had envisioned, I had turned out to be loyal, capable, and patient. Like a well-trained dog, she had not wasted her efforts. After all, when I became the top science student in the province, she had forcibly arranged my engagement to Ethan. Are you mute? Speak. Madison suddenly flew into a rage and slapped me across the face. The pain snapped me back to reality. I suddenly realized, this wasn't another nightmare. This was a rebirth, a real chance to change everything. My fingers trembled uncontrollably at the thought. Madison reached to grab my hair, but I seized her wrist in an instant. You're sure no one will come here? I asked. Of course. Madison smirked smugly. I had my people block the stairways. No teacher will be passing by. Good. That's perfect. I twisted her wrist. As she let out a sharp pain scream, I dragged her into a stall and shoved her face into the toilet. Madison struggled desperately under my grip, but it didn't shake me in the slightest. After all, I grew up in a poor mountain village. Cutting firewood and gathering grass was nothing to me. Strength? Madison, pampered her whole life, was no match for me. I yanked her up by her long hair and smiled. How's the toilet water taste? Madison's lips quivered. Her mascara was smudged into a mess. She opened her mouth, trying to scream. I shoved her back in. This time, I held her down longer. When I finally let go, she was much quieter. She didn't dare to cry out anymore, only sobbed in pitiful whimpers. I'm going to report you. You bullied me. Olivia. Just wait to be expelled. I sneered. Be my guest. I dragged Madison out of the stall by her hair. Go ahead and report me. But remember, so long as I'm in this school, every single day will be like this for you. Don't ever think you'll have it easy. These were the exact words Madison had said to me in my past life. Now, I was returning them all. Madison ran off crying. I knew she was going to tattle. Compared to a penniless scholarship student like me, the daughter of the G family could easily pull strings. I didn't care. I returned to the stall. Then, I rammed my head against the water pipe on the wall. And just like that, I reunited with the Warren family earlier than before. Not at my engagement party with Ethan, but in the principal's office. Madison was bullied like this by Olivia. I don't care what the reason is. Olivia must be expelled today. Ethan roared at the principal. Madison trembled in his arms. Her clothes were soaked, clinging to her soft, delicate figure. Mrs. Warren sat on the sofa, dressed in elegant finery and adorned with jewelry. She didn't speak, but the fact that she was here at all already conveyed her stance. Oh dear, Ethan, we haven't clarified the situation yet. Let's not jump to conclusions. The principal, usually a sycophant in front of Mrs. Warren, leaned back in his chair and sipped his tea leisurely. What did you just say? Ethan roared. That moment, the door creaked open. My homeroom teacher carefully helped me inside. The corner of my mouth was bruised. My right hand was wrapped in a cast and suspended high in a sling, and the torn collar of my uniform exposed several swollen cigarette burns on my skin. Ethan suddenly froze, like a goose that had just been strangled mid-squawk, unable to make another sound. Mrs. Warren's face was filled with shock, while Madison nearly jumped out of Ethan's arms. I turned to Mrs. Warren first, nodding slightly. Mrs. Warren, I'm sorry we have to meet under these circumstances. What happened? She asked, stepping forward and grasping my uninjured hand, her expression filled with concern. Tell me the truth, dear. What's going on? I bit my lip, hesitating, as if debating whether to speak. Mrs. Warren's tone became firmer. Olivia, be honest with me. I lifted a finger and pointed directly at Madison. Madison shrieked. She's lying. She hit me. Aunt Warren, look at my clothes. They're soaked. I remained calm, my voice steady. After school, Madison dragged me into the restroom and had her people block the stairways so no one could pass. Then she tore my clothes, burned me with a cigarette, and called me a whore. I glanced at my ruined uniform, the cigarette burns still fresh on my skin. I never laid a hand on her. My clothes got wet because she shoved me into a broken water pipe, causing it to burst. Madison lunged at me, screeching, You're lying. You broke your own arm just to frame me. I didn't respond. My gaze fell on the pocket of her wet uniform. The fabric had turned nearly transparent, revealing the bright red cigarette pack and lighter inside. Mrs. Warren's expression darkened. Without hesitation, she stepped forward, reached into Madison's pocket, and yanked out the cigarette pack and lighter. The red pack landed on the floor with a crisp sound. A clear and mocking accusation. Still want to lie? Mrs. Warren's voice was ice cold. Are you saying Olivia burned herself just to set you up? Before Madison could react, Mrs. Warren slapped her across the face. Apologize to Olivia. Mrs. Warren had always been a refined woman who valued etiquette and grace. She had never believed in using violence. Only the uncultured resorted to such things. And yet, here she was, striking Madison herself. Madison was stunned. She clutched her face, her eyes brimming with disbelief. Aunt Warren, you actually hit me. For Olivia. She turned and buried her face into Ethan's chest, wailing uncontrollably. Ethan lifted his head, looking at Mrs. Warren with visible disappointment. Mom, I know you like Olivia, but Madison is our family. How could you slap her over Olivia's one-sided accusation? His voice trembled with emotion as he held Madison protectively, his expression resembling that of a tragic hero in an outdated melodrama. Call the police. Check the surveillance footage, Ethan declared, his eyes burning with hatred as he glanced at me. This time, I will expose your true face in front of everyone. My heart pounded violently. That look. After being married to him for so many years, I didn't need any further proof. Just one glance told me the truth. Ethan had also been reborn. Perfect. A slow smile curled on my lips. Justice should be served to the right person. After all, the pain Ethan inflicted on me in my past life, shouldn't he be the one to repay it? Right on cue, a knock sounded at the door. Without sparing another glance at the so-called star-crossed lovers on the floor, I stepped forward and opened it for the police. I already called them on my way here. No need to thank me, dumbass. The officers moved quickly, following Ethan's request to check all security footage from the past hour. And sure enough, they found something. There was a camera that, during summer, would usually be blocked by the dense leaves of a French plane tree outside. But in autumn and winter, when the leaves fell, it had a clear view of the restroom window. It didn't capture everything, only the window, but it was enough to record Madison pressing a lit cigarette butt against my skin. Unfortunately for her, the rest of the scene wasn't visible. Additionally, because Madison and I were of similar height and the restroom floor was soaked from the broken pipe, all footprints were smudged beyond recognition. The forensic team could only conclude that a fight had taken place but couldn't determine who had attacked whom. However, the police did find something else: traces of Madison's fingerprints and saliva on the cigarette butts discarded on the floor. Meanwhile, the group of delinquent girls Madison had stationed at the stairway had also been caught on the security footage. Their nerves weren't strong enough to withstand police questioning. After just a few probing remarks, they spilled everything. And not just about today. They also exposed Madison's long history of bullying. I wasn't the first girl she had targeted. Any girl who got too close to Ethan had suffered under her hands. One girl, a quiet, introverted classmate of Ethan's, had only been teased by him once, just a passing joke about her chest size. Madison had taken that as a personal offense. She had arranged for a group of thugs to assault the girl. The poor girl had attempted suicide multiple times. She had dropped out of school and was now receiving psychiatric treatment at home. Madison couldn't accept the way things were unfolding. Ethan shoved everyone aside and rushed to the screen, frantically replaying the surveillance footage over and over. How could this be? How could it be so coincidental? His voice trembled with disbelief. You all must have tampered with it. The officer he had pushed aside frowned. Young man, watch your words. From the moment we arrived, we haven't even spoken to the person who made the report. Explain to me, how exactly did we tamper with anything? Madison had no answer. She buried her head in her arms and broke down into uncontrollable sobs. I stood at the back of the crowd, cold and indifferent, watching the whole spectacle unfold as if it had nothing to do with me. The secret of the camera was something I had discovered in my past life, when I donated money to renovate the school as an outstanding alumna. Back then, I hadn't wanted to contribute to a place filled with painful memories. But Madison knew exactly how to make me suffer. So she convinced Mrs. Warren and Ethan, along with the entire Warren family, to pressure me into doing it. And so, you see, everything in life follows a certain cycle. Justice may be delayed, but it is never denied. Ethan was completely dazed. Within an hour, the girl he had worshipped all his life, his so-called white moonlight, had been utterly destroyed right before his eyes. His entire world was crumbling. He crouched on the floor, gripping his hair in despair. How could this be? This isn't how it was supposed to be. Suddenly, he lifted his head. His bloodshot eyes locked onto me. It was you. You did this, didn't you? He shouted in rage. I raised a brow and looked at him coldly. What exactly did I do? Did I grab Madison's hand and force her to burn me with a cigarette? Ethan's words caught in his throat. In my past life, I had been his wife, the woman Mrs. Warren had chosen as the heir to the family business, the CEO of Warren Group. Back then, I had power and influence, the textbook villainous fiancé, in every cliché romance novel. So, of course, Ethan had always assumed everything was my fault. If Madison suffered, it was because of me. I was a cruel and calculating woman who would stop at nothing to get my way. If Madison hurt others, it was still because of me. I was jealous of her purity and beauty, so I must have set her up. But now, I had nothing, and Madison was still the rotten, malicious person she had always been. No one needed to frame her. She had done it all to herself. Ethan stared at Madison as the police twisted her arms behind her back and dragged her away. Suddenly, he let out a low, manic laugh. Tears slipped through his fingers as his laughter grew louder and louder, until it turned into wretched sobs. Mrs. Warren rushed forward in alarm. Ethan! But he shoved her hands away and ran out of the room. I watched as Madison screamed and thrashed while being shoved into the police car. Assault, false accusations, defamation, orchestrating an attack. Since she was already 17, the severity of the case meant she was looking at real jail time. No one could save her now. My injury was classified as a second-degree fracture, meaning I had sustained moderate bodily harm. If I chose to press charges, the Warren family would have to pay at least $200,000 in compensation. Mrs. Warren offered me a deal. I'll give you $1 million, she said. As long as you sign a letter of leniency and agree to drop the charges against Madison. I sneered. $1 million. I scoffed. I'd pay $1 million of my own money if it meant making sure Madison rotted behind bars. Watching a guilty person get what they deserved was far more satisfying than any amount of money. Mrs. Warren's face darkened. Olivia, she said coldly, how did you become like this? I'm very disappointed in you. I let out a dry laugh, as if I gave a damn. I knew exactly the kind of person Mrs. Warren was. She wouldn't just let this go. No, she would make sure I paid for rejecting her offer. And sure enough, the very next day, my homeroom teacher called. Olivia, I need to inform you that your financial aid has been revoked, she said. Also, the school is now requiring tuition fees for senior year to be paid in advance. Please bring the money when you return to class. Mrs. Warren really was a shrewd businesswoman. She knew exactly where to strike. My tuition at Springgrass High was $5,000 per year. My scholarships and the money I made from part-time jobs barely covered it. And my first-place scholarship for the year hadn't even been issued yet. Where was a high school junior supposed to find $5,000? On top of that, with my financial aid gone, I was about to face a situation where I couldn't even afford to eat. Mrs. Warren's intentions were crystal clear. She wanted to force me to bow my head. But she had severely underestimated me. $5,000 might be enough to push an impoverished student with no survival skills to the brink of despair. But it was nowhere near enough to break someone like me. Someone armed with a full-fledged system of theoretical knowledge, over 20 years of industry experience, professional expertise, and highly refined technical skills. In my past life, I had single-handedly transformed Warren Tech from a declining corporation into one of the leading technology firms in the industry. And now, I was staring at a golden opportunity. The IT sector was still an untapped blue ocean. I held in my hands a roadmap of the industry's next 20 years. If I didn't take action now, it would be nothing short of a crime against fate itself. As the morning sun rose high, I took a deep breath, feeling an exhilarating sense of freedom. The vast world stretched before me, an open sea for a fish to leap, a boundless sky for a bird to soar. I applied for a month of medical leave. With no computer of my own, I rented a private booth at a dingy internet cafe. In 7 days, I wrote 3 algorithmic models. On the 8th day, I pocketed my USB drive and made my way to a rundown office building in Startup Village. The man I was looking for had an unmistakable presence. Unkempt, scruffy beard, hair sticking up like a bird's nest. He looked even more disheveled than his office, but I knew exactly who he was. One day, his name would be known by every Chinese internet user. The search engine he would create would be built entirely on Chinese linguistic logic, offering the most seamless user experience for native speakers. Yet, in my past life, due to a bottleneck in key technological development, his product had launched a full year behind its international competitors. That delay cost him the first-mover advantage. His market share never recovered, and he remained forever plagued by copycats stealing his work. I know you're still missing 5 algorithmic models, I said, sitting across from a stunned Sean Chen, doing my best to project the aura of a high-level executive. I placed my USB drive on the table. Here are 3 of them. If you agree to my terms, I'll write the remaining 2 for you. Sean, realizing I wasn't joking, turned his head and shouted toward the door. A moment later, a chubby man, round as a Buddha, rolled into the room. Sean, load this up. Sean tossed the USB drive over. Are you serious? The chubby man gave me a doubtful look. This girl isn't even old enough to vote yet. Are we really just trying anything at this point? But when both Sean and I glared at him, he shut up and hurried out with the drive. 10 minutes later, he stormed back in, his face flushed red with excitement. Sean, it works. Freaking works. Local deployment time is down to 8 minutes now. Ha 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 ha. It works. The chubby man yanked Sean out of his chair, dragging him around the office in a ridiculous dance of joy. Sean, still in shock, slowly turned his head to stare at me. What about cross-platform compatibility? No issues. It runs smoothly on Windows, Linux, and macOS. Sean let out a deep breath. At this rate, we'll be able to hold our launch event in 3 months. 3 months. I bit into the cream bread Sean had given me, my first meal of the day, since I was saving money, and suddenly remembered that the competing search engine that had overshadowed Sean's entire career was also scheduled to launch in 3 months. That wasn't good. It'd be best if we could launch within 2 months, I said. Announce it early. The details can be patched later. Right now, securing our market position is the most important thing. I swallowed my bite of bread and added, if you don't have enough people, I can help. The chubby man beamed. Sister, with you on board, I can rest easy. Whatever you say, we'll do it. Sean, however, remained cautious, pushing the chubby man aside. He fixed me with a serious look. You haven't told us your terms yet. I raised my hand, spreading my fingers. 500,000, the chubby man guessed tentatively. I shook my head. 5 million? 50 million? I kept shaking my head. You can't be asking for 500 million. Right. He turned desperately to Sean for help. Sean hesitated, then nodded slowly. If it's 500 million, it's not entirely impossible once we launch. But right now, that's impossible. These guys were hilarious. 5,000, I said flatly, maintaining my commanding presence as I glanced down at them. In cash. Make it quick. I paid my tuition. Sean transferred $50,000 to me. After learning about my situation, he took me to the bank to open a new savings account, deposited the money, then withdrew $15,000 in cash to hand to me. The area where I rented my place was a chaotic mix of people from all walks of life. There was no way Sean was going to let a minor, who was both injured and carrying a large sum of money, take a taxi home alone. He insisted on driving me back himself. So, when the flashy red Ferrari pulled up outside the narrow alley where I lived, the entire neighborhood erupted into chaos. Olivia, who is that? Mrs. Liu, my landlord, was sitting outside her door on a small stool, basking in the sun. Her beady eyes glowed with curiosity as she darted glances between me and Sean, my second uncle. I replied smoothly, slipping a carton of discounted eggs I'd bought on the way into Sean's hands. He was on a business trip nearby and decided to check in on me. Sean was quick on the uptake. Immediately, he began handing out eggs to the neighbors, playing the role to perfection. Yeah, I happened to be in the area for work, he said with a smile. Then I got a call from the school about my niece getting hurt, so I dropped by. Figured I'd bring some groceries too. It's nothing much, just a small token of thanks for everyone taking care of her. Mrs. Liu's suspicions melted away as she cradled the eggs. But she wasn't quite satisfied yet. Your uncle must be pretty well off. Huh, driving such a fancy car for a business trip. Sean remained perfectly composed. Oh, the car belongs to my boss. I'm just the driver. Uncle, hurry up and bring the stuff inside. I cut in, urging him along. You still have to pick up your boss after his meeting. Sean nodded, then pulled 2 crates of milk, a bag of vegetables, and a large gift pack of snacks from the trunk. The snack bag had a grinning cartoon baby on the front, dressed in nothing but a vest and shorts, so cheerful it looked like it was celebrating Chinese New Year. Any lingering gossip died on the spot. With nothing interesting left to see, the neighbors lost interest and dispersed. Once the door was shut, Sean burst into laughter. So, I'm your second uncle now. What else? I shot him a deadpan look. A fallen high school girl and her sugar daddy? I still have my dignity, you know. And I'm sure you wouldn't want to become the latest scandal in this gossip-infested village either. Fair enough, Sean agreed, nodding. Then, without warning, he reached out and ruffled my hair until it looked just as messy as his. I was about to claw at him when he quickly dodged out of reach, still laughing. Take care of yourself, kid, he called out as he left. Scram, I snapped. But Sean didn't even make it out of the alley before he was suddenly yanked by the collar and nearly stumbled. Despite his tech nerd appearance, Sean was still a 6-foot-tall, healthy young man. Reacting instantly, he kicked the person away, sending them rolling 2 meters across the ground. Who the hell are you? He demanded. The man scrambled to his feet, looking disheveled. It was Ethan. Ethan hadn't expected anyone else to be here. His expression darkened as he looked at Sean. Who are you? Why are you in Olivia's house? Sean turned to me with a raised brow. You know this guy? I sighed. In a place like this, even the smallest commotion would draw a crowd. People were already gathering, whispering about my relationship with Ethan. How annoying. Yeah, I said simply. His name's Ethan. His sister is the one who attacked me at school. He's probably here to cause trouble. There was no way I was going to introduce him as my ex-husband from my past life. Sean gave me a nod, then very naturally stepped in front of me, shielding me behind him. Ethan's eyes landed on our hands, on the $100 bill Sean had just placed in mine. His face twisted in fury. Olivia, who the hell is this guy? He roared. None of your damn business. I replied impatiently. Of course. It's my business. I'm. Ethan choked on his words. His eyes grew red with frustration. I tightened my grip on my new phone and stared at him coldly. If he dared to say anything remotely disgusting, like husband, I'd call the psych ward and have him checked for delusional disorder. While I was at it, I might as well sue him for defamation. Showing up at my house in broad daylight, screaming like a lunatic, making it seem like I was cheating on him. What would people think if they saw this? This was outright damaging my reputation. I stepped forward, placing myself between Ethan and Sean. This is my problem, I said flatly. No need to involve anyone else. If Ethan suddenly lost it and attacked, Sean might get hurt. Ethan stared at me and Sean, his expression growing darker and darker. His fury boiled over. He reached out, trying to grab me, but Sean was faster. Sean blocked Ethan's arm with a quick sidestep and shoved him backward, making him stumble against the wall. You're asking who I am? Sean lifted his chin proudly. I'm Olivia's second uncle. Fine. I silently stepped aside, giving the stage to my second uncle. What's your problem, kid? Sean crossed his arms, looking at Ethan with exaggerated disdain. Your little sister beat my niece to this state, and we haven't even gone after you for it. And now you're throwing a tantrum at our doorstep. Ethan clenched his fists. No, this is between me and Olivia. Let her come out and talk. Oh, you want Olivia to come out? Sean dramatically raised my injured arm, still wrapped in a cast, and displayed it for the onlookers. Come take a look. Everyone, look at what they did to my niece. I realized something. Sean had a real talent for stirring up drama. A crowd quickly gathered. Whoa, she's in a cast? That's a fracture. Right. A kid this young, and already so vicious? What kind of upbringing did this family have? Exactly. If they had any proper discipline, would his sister go around beating people up? And now he's here to intimidate the victim's family? What a little punk. I recognize that uniform. He's from Springgrass High. We should report him to the school tomorrow. Ethan's face turned pale, then red, then pale again. He clenched his teeth, glaring at Sean. I don't believe it, he said coldly. Olivia is an orphan. Where the hell did she get an uncle? I scoffed, crossing my arms. What do you mean by that? Just because I'm an orphan, my entire family has to be dead. Ethan opened his mouth but couldn't say a word. His face turned a deep shade of red. He knew the truth. In my past life, my parents had no living relatives. When they died, I had no legal guardian. That was one of the reasons the Warren family had been able to manipulate me so easily. Ethan, having been reborn like me, naturally knew this too. But at this point in time, there was no logical reason for him to know. So even though he knew everything, he couldn't say a word. Sean, meanwhile, played his role to perfection. Even beggars under a bridge have a few relatives, he said indignantly. Why can't I be Olivia's uncle? Can't you wish someone well for once? Ethan clenched his fists. I don't believe it. Oh, and what does that have to do with us? Sean sneered. Who asked for your opinion? Then, as if suddenly enlightened, he said, Ah, I see now. Judging by how dumb you look, I bet your family tree is pretty thin. You probably don't even know what a second uncle is. Huh. He dug into his pocket, pulled out $2, and waved them in front of Ethan's face. Here, take this. Go ride the kitty coin-operated car at the convenience store and come back when you understand how family trees work. I snorted, unable to hold back a laugh. Sean really had a talent for pissing people off. And it was working. Ethan was practically shaking with rage. His eyes turned bloodshot as he stared at me. Olivia, my mom paid for your education. She did you a favor. And now you're just standing there while this guy humiliates me. I raised an eyebrow. Wow, Ethan, that's all it takes for you to lose it. I took a step closer, my voice turning ice cold. Where was this righteous anger when your sister bullied me? When your mother treated me like her pawn? You knew neither of us wanted this marriage. But you also knew you were nothing without me. You clung to me to maintain your image as CEO of Warren Tech. You refused to divorce me, but at the same time, you acted like you were the one suffering the most. You crushed me, humiliated me, and turned my life into a living hell. My talent became my chains, and my suffering meant nothing to you. I met his gaze, my voice calm. So now, it's your turn. Ethan's eyes filled with tears. He whispered, so this is revenge. Then, since you already know, I said coldly, get lost. You're right. Your mother paid for my education, and I should be grateful. I turned and walked inside. When I came back, I was holding an envelope with exactly $13,000 inside. Mrs. Warren sponsored my education for 3 years. I said, 2 years of tuition, plus $1,000 a year in aid. It's all here. I shoved the envelope into his hands. Take it and get out. From now on, I owe you nothing, and I don't ever want to see you again. Ethan stood frozen in place. I didn't wait for him to respond. I turned my back and shut the door. I spent the next month recovering and finishing the last 2 algorithmic models for Sean. When I finally returned to school, the doctor said my arm was healing well. As long as I was careful and avoided heavy lifting for a year, there wouldn't be any long-term effects. Meanwhile, Madison was still attending school. This was no surprise. The case was still under public prosecution. Mrs. Warren had likely arranged for Madison to be released on bail. However, Ethan's seat remained empty. As I stepped into the classroom, the previously noisy room fell into a brief silence. Madison was whispering with a few girls, but when she noticed my entrance, she deliberately raised her voice. My brother saw it with his own eyes, she said smugly. Olivia got out of some strange man's car. Oh my God. Really? Wow. Olivia is really something. Huh. I never expected it. She's always been such a top student, but her private life is such a mess. Yeah. So disgusting. Madison's voice wasn't low, making sure everyone in the class could hear her. Soon, whispers and side glances spread across the room, all directed at me. She smirked in satisfaction, then turned to me with a feigned look of innocence. Olivia, is that true? I rolled my eyes and turned to the back of the classroom, where our teacher stood with an expression as dark as thunder. Teacher, what do you think? I asked casually. The homeroom teacher shot Madison a sharp glare before snapping. Madison, this is a classroom, a place for studying. If you don't want to learn, then get out. Madison's face turned pale, then red. The class collectively gasped. Most of them knew that Madison was the adopted daughter of a board member. Normally, the teachers turned a blind eye to her antics. But today, the homeroom teacher had publicly reprimanded her. Ignoring the scene, I walked to my seat, put down my bag, and settled in. My desk mate and the girl in front of me, noticing my injured hand, automatically turned around to help me organize the stack of test papers that had piled up during my absence. Be careful, Olivia. My desk mate whispered. Madison is glaring at you. I lifted my head. Sure enough, Madison was gnashing her teeth, staring daggers at me. Smirking, I raised my water cup and made a toasting gesture toward her. Then, with exaggerated lip movements, I silently mouthed, "How does it taste?" Madison's face twisted. A moment later, she suddenly gagged and threw up. She vomited so violently that the teacher had to pause the lesson and send 2 students to escort her to the infirmary. Then, in front of the whole class, the teacher called Mrs. Warren. But Mrs. Warren was busy. The call was transferred to her secretary. Madison lay in the infirmary until school ended. No one came to check on her. The big brother who had once defended her so passionately, and the adoptive mother who had once shielded her from everything had both disappeared overnight. Naturally, the class was full of whispers. I calmly sipped my water, a faint smirk tugging at my lips. From the looks of it, Mrs. Warren's patience for her troublesome adopted daughter was finally running thin. After all, back in the principal's office, Ethan and Madison had clung to each other so blatantly that even an idiot could see their relationship was far from normal sibling affection. Mrs. Warren valued Ethan more than anything. She would never allow even the slightest hint of scandal to taint his reputation. Even if they weren't biologically related, the optics were still disastrous. Of course, outsiders didn't know the full story. All they saw was that Madison had fallen from favor. That afternoon, I picked up my registration form for the national academic competition from the teacher's office. On my way back, I overheard the same girls who had been gossiping with Madison earlier now huddled at the back door, whispering amongst themselves. So it's true? Madison was actually, with her brother. It has to be. Think about it. Why did she go after every girl who got close to Ethan? The leader of the group, a girl with shiny lip gloss, glanced around to make sure Madison wasn't in the room, then excitedly leaned in. You guys don't know, do you? My aunt works at the police station. She said Madison is definitely going to jail. What? The group gasped. Tell us more. You remember last year, that girl from class 4, Cho Ping Ping, the one who almost jumped off the building? Yeah. Well, the girl lowered her voice, her eyes gleaming with excitement. It turns out Madison was the one who hired people to, do something to her. The air grew thick with unease. My aunt said that this time, there's no way Madison can escape. Even juvenile law won't be able to save her. You're making this up. A sharp scream cut through the classroom. Madison had just entered. She lunged forward and slapped the girl across the face. The girl staggered back, clutching her cheek in disbelief. What the hell? Madison! The others immediately sprang up in outrage. Yeah, just because you did something wrong doesn't mean you can hit people for talking about it. Madison, you're disgusting. Who do you think you are? You're nothing. Stop acting like you're special. A chorus of furious voices surrounded Madison. Her body trembled with rage, but she couldn't say a word. She lunged at them, attempting to fight, but she was outnumbered. Within moments, she was dragged by her hair and pulled toward the restroom. As she was hauled away, students pointed and laughed, some even taking out their phones. No one stepped in to help her. Her cries of humiliation echoed through the hallway, loud enough to be heard from 2 classrooms away. I wasn't interested in the commotion and turned away. Returning to my seat, the queen of the hyenas had been gravely wounded, and now, her former pack would turn on her, tearing her apart. Without Mrs. Warren's protection, Madison was nothing. Naturally, she would become the fresh prey that her former lackeys feasted upon. You reap what you sow. There is nothing new under the sun. 2 weeks later, I went to the hospital to have the cast removed from my right hand. 5 days after that, I represented my school in the state mathematics competition's indoor selection. Unsurprisingly, I took first place. After the state competition ended, I went straight to the launch event for the new search engine, holding my championship trophy in hand. Sean's search engine was still called Gigi, just like in my past life. To know what you know, and to admit what you do not know, that is true knowledge. Sean had even shaved and styled his hair for the occasion. He stood on stage, gripping the microphone, though visibly nervous. His eyes burned with passion. I hope that every person in IT will uphold this belief, he declared. Stay grounded. Never forget your original purpose. Thunderous applause erupted from the audience. My seat was in the front row, with a nameplate in front of me that read, Technical Consultant. This point in time, the world still adored the concept of a genius girl. Journalists snapped photos of me, and before long, my name was making rounds on the internet. Naturally, the media soon dug up my past entanglements with the Warren family. That included my lawsuit against Madison, which had been repeatedly delayed due to Mrs. Warren's influence. Winning the state math competition put me in the spotlight. A struggling scholarship student turning against her wealthy benefactor? Perfect scandal. The Warren family's arrogant and dismissive attitude toward the situation only made things worse. And with the added bonus of a juicy high society scandal, complete with betrayal, backstabbing, and twisted family drama, Public discourse around me exploded. Ironically, Gigi benefited from the attention, gaining even more traction. I didn't mind. After all, Sean had already given me company shares. The more buzz Gigi generated, the more money went into my pocket. I had no reason to turn down free publicity. When it came to youth education, Sean was as stubborn as an overprotective father. He went as far as filing a request with the police department to become my temporary legal guardian. Then, he personally rejected all interview requests and invitations on my behalf. Even when I had to appear in court against Madison, he accompanied me. His protective instincts were almost ridiculous, hovering around me like a mother hen shielding her chick. Both the chubby guy from our team and I agreed that Sean was probably enjoying his second uncle role a little too much. But Sean refused to admit it. On another note, Mrs. Warren never showed up in court. Ethan, reborn and knowing the future, had advised her to invest heavily in the international search engine company that had originally beaten Sean to the market in my past life. She poured nearly all of Warren Tech's liquid assets into acquiring stocks. But this time, Gigi had launched first. With no early advantage, the foreign competitor's stocks plummeted to the price of scrap paper. Mrs. Warren now faced the looming threat of bankruptcy. She had far bigger problems than Madison. The court had to appoint a lawyer for Madison since Mrs. Warren wouldn't pay for one. In the end, Madison was sentenced to 6 years in prison. The overwhelming media coverage had amplified the severity of the case. The judge had handed down the harshest possible sentence for her charges. The moment the gavel struck, the girl sitting beside me in the plaintiff's seat let out a quiet sob. She slowly removed her cap and face mask, then threw herself into my arms, crying uncontrollably. I held Cho Ping Ping, the once curvy girl who was now frail and skeletal, gently patting her back in comfort. Looking up, I spotted a grayish-white sparrow perched by the high-ventilation window of the courtroom. It tilted its tiny head at us, then flapped its wings and soared into the open sky. A rare clear day in the midst of a bitter winter.